Hi there, well we're back with you once again for episode 3 of Keysound TV. Yes, we're still here, they haven't taken us off air yet, and I hope what we've got for you is another enjoyable hour or so, all about keyboards. We've got certainly plenty of music, we've got some instruction on various keyboard products, and we've got some more tuition on playing, and we've got a couple of guest appearances again. We welcome back Mr. Andy Carvill, who gave you a little insight into styles last month, and he'll be continuing along on the same theme. And really, because my wife has to put up with me taking over the whole house once a month, I said she could be involved in this episode, so she's going to play a little tune for you a little bit later on. But I'm going to keep this intro brief because you don't want to know where the other end of this microphone cable's going, but it's not very comfortable at the moment, so I will keep this brief other than to say sit back and enjoy yourselves, and I'm sure I'll see you a little bit later. Well, welcome to this first little section, and this has come about for two reasons really. First of all, it was a request from a customer, and B, I thought it would be a fun thing for me to sort of prepare in front of you, just to show you the sort of thought process that I go through when I'm thinking about creating a registration. So here's what we're going to do. I had a little request from one of our viewers to, could I recreate the sound of a small brass band? Now, I hope I've done the right thing. To me, a small brass band is the sort of thing that I remember way back when I was a boy. Oh yes, way back then. I remember every Christmas you had that little group of musicians, little brass band. Sometimes there'd be 5, maybe 6 people. We're not talking about a big brass band here, we're talking about a small intimate setup, and they would always be in the town centre or around the streets playing the Christmas carols, and a beautiful sound. And so what do I think about when I think about that sort of sound? I think about warmth and a rich sound. I don't think of harsh trumpets or brass. I just think of that smooth, lovely, warming sort of sound. It's that sort of feeling it gave you. So, in my mind, what are the more mellow of the sort of sounds that would probably suit? And the two that crop to mind for me are the cornet and the horns, because they both have that sort of mellowness and warmth that we're looking for. So I'm going to compile this on my Korg Pa4x, but the rules that I'm sort of stating out here you can follow for any instrument. So first of all, I need my lead instrument, and I've chosen a voice on the Korg here called cornet legato. Legato just means smooth, so it's going to be an ideal sound. I know it is, even before we try it. So we got this sort of thing. It is a lovely, warm, it's a rounded sort of sound. Now, here's the thing. I want this as a lead voice. And if you think in real life, a cornet player can only blow on his own or on her own one note at a time. So let's recreate that. How do we do it? We go into menu and we go into track controls, and under the mode tab here I have the option to change all of the sounds in the different sections to either be polyphonic sounds or monophonic sounds. Now polyphonic means we can play as many notes as we want, so if we want to put a fistful of notes down they will all sound. Monophonic means you can only play one note at a time. And on the Korg we have some different options on monophonic. I've chosen monophonic R. Now R stands for right. What that means is if you play a chord, only the right hand note, or in other words the highest note of the group of notes that you're playing, will sound. So now look, if I play this E flat, I try to play any other note below that and it won't sound. That's because that is the right or the highest note that we're playing. If we try a note higher, yeah, that will sound, but now the original note won't sound because it will only play one note at a time. So that's our lead voice, but then we need some horns, I think, to go with it that we can play some chords to. Then what will happen as we play more than one note with the horns, that cornet will just emphasize or sing out that top or the melody note for us. So what I've got in upper 3, I've chosen soft horns 1. I mean, even on its own, that's getting close to that sort of brass band sound that we want. I can put the cornet back with it. And you can probably hear there now you've got much more emphasis on that lead note, which is what we want. I've put some different horns in the left hand. I've chosen soft horns 3. And we get that nice sort of bass sound. And if we were to put that together, that would make a very quick, this isn't perfect by any means because I'm just doing it sort of on the fly here now. I could mess about with that a little bit more and probably get a little bit better, but that will do for now. That will be our building block. Now, mixing sounds together is one thing. Probably the most important thing is how we balance those sounds. Now, I can't teach you that. You have to use these things, your ears, because it will be different on every single setup. So there isn't a golden rule here. What I tend to do is get the mix of sounds and then I will adjust the volumes. I just keep playing some notes and bring volumes up and down. You will know, I hope anyway, when it's right for you and the sort of sound that you're trying to recreate. So I'm actually quite happy with that. I might take the volume of the cornet up just a tad. That's better. I can just hear that a little bit. Then you need to make sure you've got a nice balance between the right and the left hand. And yeah, we have. That's okay. But I've gone a stage further with this registration. I conjured up, when I was doing it, I had this idea of a little corner of a Victorian street in my head. So what I always try and do is immerse myself in the type of sound that I'm trying to recreate. And I thought, you know, if you were out on a Victorian street, there'd be noises of horse and carriages going by, maybe the church bells going. You'd hear people moving about on the cobbles on the street. So I went searching on the internet and I found a lovely site where it's free to download some radio and TV sound effects, and I found one called Victorian Street and I thought, wow, this is going to be perfect. And I've put that in my MP3 player here and have a listen. I'll just take it back to the beginning there. Have a listen. This is what is on the MP3. It's lovely because putting that in the background will really elevate this from just being an ordinary registration to something quite special, because that little sound effect running in the background is creating an atmosphere and an ambience that you just can't do from the sound alone. So it's the whole package. So think about things sometimes. You know, you might be playing let's take a tune like Once Upon a Time in the West, and you might want the noise of the wind just gently in the background. You can often find these things as sound effects, or you've got them as sound effects on the keyboard that you can put into the pads and play them in the background. You're creating a whole atmosphere with your piece of music, and that's very much part of it. So, less of me waffling and onto the tune. But before I do this, something very important. If you've spent, like I did, 10 minutes, quarter of an hour, putting a sound together, please don't lose it. Don't go and press something else or switch the keyboard off and expect it to still be there the next time you switch on. Most modern digital instruments, when you switch something off and you haven't saved it, bye-bye. We've lost it, unfortunately. So I need to save that before I go any further. And here is a really great thing. I often hear people say, oh, Korg, you know, they're complicated. They're not. They're not at all. And I hope over the coming months with both the Korg and the Yamaha, we'll unlock some of these little mysteries for you. If I want to save that, I save on the Korg. This is terminology again. I think we talked about this a little bit last month. We save everything into the songbook. Think of the songbook as this massive book that's got all your registrations in for every song you're going to play. How do I save? Very simple. I press and I hold the songbook button just for a couple of seconds and wait for the screen to come in. It says, do you want to write a song? I've given it a name, Brass Band. I've already done that, but if you needed to put a name in, you just press where the T is for text, clear the existing name out and type in your name. And I'm storing it as an internal setting. Okay, are you sure? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. There we go. So that's now gone into the songbook. I don't need to check, but I could do press songbook, and there it is. It's the current one, Brass Band, and it has a little MP3 by it. That's because we've saved it with that MP3 file. So onto the piece of music. I dug long and hard through my music box and I came up with this one. It's a little, I think it's an old hymn called All in the April Evening. And the reason I'm using this copy, you'll have to excuse, it's a bit tatty, it's been around a few years. It's written in sort of church organ style with a right hand and a left hand harmony, which actually suits this sort of brass band thing really, really nicely. So that's what we're going to use. I'm just going to swap the keyboard around and get the cameras at a different angle. And then I'm going to play you a little bit. It won't be the whole piece, but play you a little bit of this registration we've created with that MP3 in the background. Our own little small brass band. Hope you enjoy it. Well, now it gives me great pleasure to welcome back somebody we had with us last month, and that's Mr. Andy Carvill. Andy gave us a great little insight into the basics of how a style works and all the component parts. And it was lovely to see so many people respond, because when you are in the business, it's very easy to assume that the customer has a certain amount of knowledge. So please, if you're a little bit more advanced, bear with us, because we will work to some more advanced things. But we have to work on the basis that we all know nothing. So let's start from scratch on each topic, and then slowly and surely get a little bit more in depth as we go through. So Andy's returned back into what did he call it last month? The dining studio. And he's back to continue his journey of how to best use styles and how to get the most from them. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Andy Carvill.
Well, hello again and welcome to Keysound TV. It's my pleasure to be here again. And this little video is a follow-on to my last video, which talked about the style section. I'm here playing the Korg Pa4x, but I'm sure this will apply to your instrument at home as well. So we're going a little bit more in depth with styles this time. We have the basic variations, intros and endings and fill-ins. But another option we have is that we can actually take out or change the individual instruments being used within a style. Now, firstly, I'd just like you to play a style. I've selected here the Dixieland style. Now, I know, because I've played this style before, that this is quite a busy style. There's a lot going on. There's lots of instruments in the Dixieland band, and they're all playing along with great excitement. And if I select intro number 1, it sounds like this. There's the drummer. Here's the band. Wow! Here's the style. Right, and you can play along to that. Now ending. Wow, what a fantastic Dixieland band. That's a very large Dixieland band, and perhaps sometimes if you go to a little pub in the country somewhere and they have a Dixieland band playing on a Sunday lunchtime, you won't have as many instruments playing as that. And what I would like to show you is how you can actually cut that down. Now, as I say, I'm using this PA1000, but I'm sure you can do the similar sort of thing with your instrument at home. So the first thing I'm going to do is break into, using this track select button, break into that Dixieland style. Now, if we look on the screen here, you can now see all the individual tracks that Dixieland style uses. You can also press the instrument icons above here and see which instruments are being used. So I've got drums here, I've got a real acoustic bass in the bass section, I've got a grand piano being played here, I've got a banjo being played here, trumpet, clarinet and another trumpet. So I've got 2 trumpeters there. Now, I may not want all of those players playing along, and indeed, if I'm going to use a clarinet sound here, I'm going to not want a clarinet player in the style, because usually the small Dixieland band in the Sunday pub is usually just very small, perhaps 3 or 4, 5 or 6 players at the very most. In fact, perhaps if it's a very small pub, you won't even have a drummer. There won't be room for him to actually set up. So I'm going to take out some of the tracks that I don't want to use. So let's take out the drummer, and how I do that is I press here until it says mute, and I've now muted the drummer. I'm going to mute my second drummer as well, and I'm going to mute my grand piano and my trumpets, in fact both of those trumpets, and the clarinet. And all I've got now is a banjo player and a bass player. So my style now sounds like this. It's just a banjo and the bass player. I can add the drummer back in if I want to, just by unmuting the track. There he is. But let's leave him out for now. And I can just play along with that. I can still use my rhythm variations if I want to, but I will still only hear the banjo and the bass player. Here's variation 4. A little bit different, not so different. Here's variation number 1. More simple, a more simple variation. Ending, very simple ending. So that gives me the option to take out each of those individual tracks. If I want to be a little more detailed about it, I can even adjust the individual volumes of each of those instruments in the accompaniment style. So let's run that same little option there. We've got the banjo and the bass player. But this time I'm just going to turn down the banjo. Or turn up the banjo. Then I'm going to add back in now a clarinet. And I'm going to turn him down. Turn him back up. Here's one trumpet coming back in. Ending. So we now have so much variety, so many things that we can do with our styles just by taking the instruments out or adjusting the volumes. I hope you found that interesting. It's certainly something to try on your instrument at home, and thank you very much for watching Keysound TV.
Well, thanks very much, Andy. That was incredibly informative, and we look forward to future little tuition hints and tips from you on Keysound TV. Now, as I said last month, I've known Andy a lot of years. We're utilising Andy in terms of teaching you, giving you some ideas, but in his own right, Andy is a fabulous musician, and most recently he's got very involved in composing his own pieces of music, and he's written some delightful things for some of the music magazines, and I know a little while ago he produced a whole CD of just his own compositions, and there are some lovely pieces of music in there, and I'm pleased to say that Andy's just going to play a little bit of one of those pieces for us. Beautiful piano and strings. Take a listen to this. Absolutely delightful. Thanks ever so much, Andy. I don't know about the rest of you listening, but that sort of put me in mind of those sort of John Barry film type themes. Absolutely beautiful. and welcome to this little segment where we sort of pass on a few hints and tips on playing. And what we're going to look at today is something which a lot of people are confused by, and that's this little device over here. It's a joystick, basically. To give it its correct name, it's pitch bend and modulation, because they are the two primary functions that this will do. Some of you may have a keyboard with two wheels on them. The left hand one will do the pitch bend, and that's where we can actually send a note off pitch, whether it's lower or higher than its original pitch. And the other one is modulation. Now, on the joystick, left and right will give you the pitch bend. Obviously, move it to the left, you're bending the note down below its original pitch. And if you go to the right, you're taking it above its original pitch. It is on a spring, so it will always come back to the middle position. So it'll always end up back in tune again. And there are various ways we can use it. We're just going to have a look at a couple of them today, but we're really going to sort of concentrate on one of the methods. When we move it forward, it is also on a spring on this joystick. Actually, a lot of manufacturers call it a joy lever. Well, it gives me joy anyway, so to give it its correct name. But now even the modulation side is on a spring. If you've got the traditional two wheels, you may find that the modulation wheel is not on a spring. So be very, very careful, because once you've put it on, and you might forget about it and you go to a sort of piano sound, you'll suddenly find then that your piano sound might be a bit like this. Listen to it with modulation on. Oh, doesn't sound good at all. So just beware of that. Actually, on the SX900, the Yamaha that I'm using here, you have got a modulation hold button. So if for any reason on a certain sound you want that modulation on all the time, then you can actually hold it in position. Don't forget to unlock it again afterwards. So what I'm going to need for this, I'm going to use a little country song to just show you some use of the pitch bend, particularly on a guitar. Now, the reason I'm using a guitar is, I'm sure many of you are aware, watch a guitar player, that left hand, yeah, that's if you're a right-handed guitar player, obviously some play that way, but yeah, let's take it this way round. So the left hand, whichever hand is on the fretboard, you often see them touch a string and bend it up and then back down to its original position. Sometimes they'll bend it down, and sometimes they use the little tremolo arm to send things out of tune as well. So you can do it a couple of ways, but a guitar is something where they can easily bend a note, so that's why what we're going to try and replicate here. And I want a country rhythm. Now, this ties back to what we showed you last month. Funny enough, on the SX700 and the 900, we don't have a category of styles for country. Now, country is a very, very popular genre of music, so in some ways it's a little bit surprising not to find a category there. But I want to find some country rhythms, so I'm going to make use of our little search feature. Do you remember that from last time? So I'm going to press the little style section, and I'm going to press my little magnifying glass, and I'm actually going to type country into the little search bar there, and I'm going to press OK. Now what it's done, it's searched the instrument for any style. Now bear in mind this will just be styles because we started by pressing the style bit on the main screen that has the word country in it, and the one I'm after happens to be on page 3. It's called country strumming, so I'll press OK. That's loaded that. Now, just for future reference, if you press exit and go back to the main screen, I can actually see that that has come up. It's in the pop and rock section because it's actually highlighted the pop and rock section. So just for future reference, we've actually now learnt where some of the country styles are. I know through experience with this keyboard some of them are in the world section, but nice to know, and yeah, I'll remember it for next time round. So I'm going to use country strumming. And I'm going to use the one touch setting, and I'm going to use number 3 because there's a nice pedal steel guitar in there, and that will lend itself really, really well for using the pitch bend. So let's have a look at 2 ways we can use the pitch bend using that guitar sound. So the first one, we're going to actually strike the note first, and then we're going to bend the note up. So we're going to actually make it sharp, raise the pitch, and then take it back to its normal pitch. And this is literally just replicating a guitar player who will actually bend the note up. So we strike the note. Let's do that again for you. Okay. The thing about the joystick is you can control the speed of that pitch bend. So if I wanted to do it really slowly, or quickly, and you can also determine the amount you bend the note by how far to the right or how far to the left you take it. To be honest, there isn't a written rule that says you do it at that speed. A lot of it will be controlled by the tempo of the piece of music you're playing, and you'll feel what is the right speed to do it at. But you can hear already that little country edge coming in just by that bend in the note. Now let's look at the other, and that's the one we're gonna major on quite a bit, and that is where we actually bend the note in advance. We use the pitch bend in advance of playing the note. So when we first strike the note will be out of tune, and then you bring it back into tune. Now this works great if you use the pitch bend to the left to start with. In other words, we're lowering the pitch. So the note will be slightly flat when we first strike it, and then we bring it back into pitch. So let's use that same note of C again. We'll move the pitch bend to the left. Now, that really does sound country because it's like those pedal steel slide guitars that they use. So, and you'll hear when we put that into a piece just how effective that is. Now, here's my little moan, if you like. So many people, when you talk to them, they say, oh, couldn't possibly use that. I've got too many other things to do. Yes, of course you've got a lot of things to do. You're concentrating on the music, your chords, the notes, and all the other things that are going on. But, you know, that isn't an excuse for not giving this a try. Imagine that little joystick, whatever we want to call it. Imagine that was the gear stick in a car. When you get into busy traffic, you don't suddenly go, oh no, sorry, can't change gear because I've got too many other things to think about. No, you just carry on and you change gear. And why? Because you've practiced changing gear, in many cases for many years. So it's become second nature. And my teacher always taught me that being able to take your hands off to change registration, to put a fill in, to use things like modulation, pitch bend, they're just as important to practice as practicing the notes. And it's only by practice that will become second nature. I think they call it muscle memory. So to start with, if you play your piece of music, just move your hand there and back. Don't even attempt to use the pitch bend to start with. Just get in the habit of taking your hand off and back on. Now again, the common comment is, oh yeah, but you know, I never get back to the right chord. Well, why not, to start with, pick somewhere where you're holding the same chord for 2 bars, and maybe try and incorporate the pitch bend at the end of the first bar or at the beginning of the second bar, so that you've actually got almost up to a whole bar to get back to either the same chord or your next chord. It will happen. You can always slow the tempo down, but you must practice it. Week after week, we can show people different techniques. That's not a problem. But you have to participate by at least giving it a go. And I promise you, when you first use it, you'll make these sort of weird and wonderful sounds. and you'll wonder, why am I bothering? But eventually it will all click into place. So let's use our little piece of music. I'm not going to overdo this, but I'm going to use this pitch bend 3 or 4 times during the piece, and hopefully you will hear how much more countrified, is there such a word as countrified? Well, there is now because we've just used it. How much more countrified this sounds just by mastering that technique of the pitch bend wheel. It's a little thing called Country Roads, Take Me Home. There you go. It's a great little technique. Of course it will work with other instruments and other styles of music, but please just give it a go, persevere with it. You will master it in the end, and hope you've enjoyed it. So I thought, while we've got the SX900 all set up, I'll just finish off by just playing a little piece of music. And this one is a real blast from the past for me, because I learnt my trade and did my apprenticeship, if you like, in this business back in the working men's clubs on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday, when there was 3 acts on each night, and my job with my drummer was to back those acts. And in the late 70s there was a batch of songs you almost knew they would crop up night after night, and this was one of those songs, but I've put a little twist on it. We've put a sort of James Last organ a go-go and the James Last brass type sounds on it, and it's a little thing called 10 Guitars. Hope you enjoy. Well, welcome to this next little segment, and this segment came about because one of our viewers sent me an email and just said, what is the best way to use a foot switch? What is the best function for a foot switch? Well, if I'm honest, I can't answer that for each of you as individuals. What I can do is take 5 minutes out to tell you how a foot switch works, why you should use foot switches, and then show you a really special foot switch that we have for the PA4X. Now, Yes, I'm using my PA4X, but if you have a Yamaha product or a Korg product, I guarantee you will find the settings for Footswitch in a button marked menu. That tends to be the trend now. All these little things that you can program and assign functions to will be in the menu section of your keyboard. So just find your menu button. But first of all, let's have a look at what a Footswitch is. Well, Footswitches come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. I've got a little square one there. We've got a more sort of rounded shape one, but basically they all do the same job. The only Footswitch, well, there's two actually that do different functions. An expression pedal is also a Footswitch, and we'll deal with that another time, but expression pedal or volume control is how you can put additional light and shade into your music with the softs and the loud passages. But you also have a damper. Now, the two pedals that I've just showed you will work as a damper. A damper is a sustain pedal, and we talked about sustain last month. Now, if you play piano style quite a lot on your keyboard, that's an absolute must. Why would I use that as opposed to that? Two things really. First of all, it feels and looks like a genuine pedal you would find on an acoustic piano or a digital piano. So it has the right sort of feel to start with. And also it's in a much sturdier unit, so you don't do this thing of chasing the Footswitch around on the carpet or on the wooden floor, because it's so lightweight, which a lot of the small square ones tend to be. But in the case of the Korg, that is specifically for sustain to work as a damper pedal. So that has its own socket. But when you plug something into the Footswitch, most times we're using it as an on-off switch rather than we're holding it down to do a function like sustain. Why do you need a Footswitch? Well, the answer's simple really. This is trying to make your life as a keyboard player as easy and as comfortable as possible. I know we've talked today about practicing taking your hand off, for example, to use the pitch bend wheel. But it doesn't just stop at the pitch bend wheel, does it? You've got to stop and start the rhythm. You might want to bring a fill-in in, you might want to do an ending, all sorts of things. That is where a Footswitch comes into play. So if on the Korg here we press menu, I can't actually see any setting for the Footswitches. But you've got two menus on the Korg, same as you have two pages, if you like, on the Genos and the SX series. On the Korg, we have what we call a global menu. Now, a global setting is something which affects the whole keyboard all of the time. So it's something which is outside of a single registration. So what we do is we set up a global setting for that Footswitch. That means that whatever registration I go to, I can be confident that that Footswitch will still do the same function that I asked it to do. So here's how we access it on a Korg. We press global and menu, and then we have a section called controllers. I can see the damper. It asks us to calibrate it. This is something you will find again on modern instruments, because you can buy any make of sustain pedal. It asks you to calibrate it by just holding it fully down, press the screen, release it, press the screen. That is the keyboard's way of learning the range, if you like, of that particular pedal. Exactly the same would be true of a volume pedal. But basically, if I pull down the menu, I now have access to literally hundreds of functions here that this Footswitch can do. We can do all the normal things to do with the styles, and that's where most people are familiar with using a Footswitch, to start and stop the rhythm, to maybe bring a fill-in in, to introduce a particular ending, and you can tell it which of the endings you want to do. You may want to change your one-touch setting registration, or keyboard set, as we call it on the Korg. There are all manner of things you can do with a foot switch. My advice is program it to something which you are going to use a lot of the time. There's no point. For example, Andy showed us this little Dixie rhythm, and he talked about not having the drums in and then maybe introducing the drums later. I could assign my foot switch to bring a particular accompaniment part in, i.e. the drums. But that's something I'm only going to use maybe in one registration. I would rather that foot switch be programmed to do something like start and stop the rhythm, maybe an ending, maybe a fill-in, something which you use constantly in lots of pieces of music. Now, on the Korg here, we have one socket for a damper pedal, one socket for a foot switch. On some instruments, you will have the option of 2 foot switches. Great, we can plug 2 foot switches in and we can assign a different function to each foot switch. But wouldn't it be great if we had a whole bank of foot switches? And that just brings me to this. It's called an EC5 by Korg, and incidentally this only works arranger keyboard wise on the Pa4x, but it's fantastic now because one cable with a dedicated socket at the back, I now have access to 5 different foot switches. And again, if I go into global, I can see a little tab at the bottom which says EC5, and then I can program switches A, B, C, D and E, and it's just all done with a pull down menu. And again, because that's a global setting, that's there. So you can have start, stop your rhythm, you can have intro, you can have ending, you can change, go up through your one touch settings, keyboard sets, whatever you want, really whatever you want. That, if you have a Pa4x, is an invaluable piece of kit. And we have bought stock of these on a very special offer. So if you are interested and if you've got a Pa4x, I would highly recommend it. Give the shop a call, tell them you're a Keysound TV viewer, and we will work you out a great deal on the EC5 there. Really is a fantastic bit of kit. So just to summarise, I can't tell you what the best function is for a foot switch. What I can tell you is you should use foot switches because it does save you having to take your hands off, and there are certain functions that we all can't do quick enough and smooth enough. So give some consideration to using foot switches. So here we are back in the shop. That was some dash. Back to do the next little segment, and the other little accessory I want to talk to you about are headphones. Now, headphones is a bit of a strange one, really. First of all, you need to determine how important headphones are to you. And by that, what I mean is, do you have to spend quite a large percentage of your playing time using headphones, or is this a once in a blue moon thing? Or do you get nagged at because Coronation Street's on and they're trying to watch and you're trying to practice your keyboard, so you need to put your headphones on? Now, there are various grades, let's call them that, of headphones, and to a large extent you will get what you pay for. Now, if you're only going to use headphones once in a blue moon, then something like a £15–16 set of headphones will do the job, because you're only using them, like I say, once in a blue moon. But of course, let's say for argument's sake you've spent £2,000 on your instrument and you then listen to it through a £15 or £16 pair of headphones, which, let's be frank, that is edging towards the bottom of the range. They're fine for odd use, but you're not going to hear the best results from your instrument using this, particularly if you have to spend a long time wearing those headphones. I really don't see the point in having spent an awful lot of money on an instrument which has a superb sound. And these days, let's be honest, they all have great onboard amplification systems, and then you put it through the cheapest pair of headphones you can find. So think carefully about whether that is the best option for you. You can then go up to like a branded pair, a Yamaha pair here, very lightweight, they're still comfortable, they still cover the ear. Now I personally prefer that type of headphone. I don't like these little things that poke into your ear. I don't think for keyboards and pianos you get the best result. So you could look at something like that, which is, you know, the 40 to 60 pound bracket will get you a nice pair of headphones like that. If, like a lot of people, a lot of people now live in apartments, whether it be retirement apartments, standard apartments, a lot of people are in semi-detached houses. A lot of my customers, believe it or not, like to get up at 1 or 2 in the morning and have a play on the instrument. Then I would seriously consider something like the Roland headphones. And don't worry, because it says Roland, they are compatible with all the other makes. A very, very good quality headphone there. You're looking at around £85 for something like that. But again, can I reiterate, relative to the price of probably what you've spent on your instrument, that is still a small percentage, but at least you are doing the instrument justice in the sort of sound quality that will come through. Now, next month is a bit of a Korg month next month, because we're going to look at the history of Korg, like we did with Casio last month. And Korg have just introduced a pair of headphones which absolutely blow my mind, not only in the sound quality, but the functionality of them. Now, I'm not going to tell you the price at the minute. We'll discuss that next month. But it's difficult with headphones because I can't demonstrate to you the difference, for example, between that and that on this sort of video presentation. You're going to have to trust me on this one. You will hear a much, much finer sound quality on these, and they will be more comfortable to wear over a longer period of time. So I suppose what I'm really trying to say is don't skimp on the accessories. It's like we talked about the Footswitch. Relative to the price, these are small prices to pay for those extra bits of comfort and convenience. One little thing I will say just before I finish this, people keep asking about Bluetooth headphones. Keyboards or pianos do not work over Bluetooth for headphones. They actually don't need to. If you think about it, when you use headphones on a keyboard or a piano, you are always sat right in front of the instrument. So a cable is not a problem. It's not like when you want to watch your television and you want to sit away from your television. You don't want a cord drapes in across the whole of your lounge. So you can use Bluetooth headphones, but all headphones that you use on keyboard and piano instruments should have the cord on them. So that's just a little bit about headphones. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you found it informative. Now, something a little bit special to me, as I mentioned earlier, my wife is also a very competent keyboard player, and actually I asked her whether she'd be involved in this one, and hopefully in the next couple of months you're going to see an appearance of Steve's wife. This is purely coincidence that me and Steve are working together. We both have Dutch wives. Yeah, how that happened, I don't know. But my wife's very patient with me. We take over the whole house once a month to film this for you. And believe me, it does look a bit of a bomb site once we've finished filming. But she's very patient. And what we thought would be nice, we've done some shows together over the years, but it's very difficult because I'm also the cameraman and the presenter. So I've pre-recorded a little bit, some drum parts and bass line, and she's going to add the rest to it, and it's a lovely little tune. I hope you enjoy it. It's from The Lion King, and it's called Can You Feel the Love Tonight? Well, there you go. That's it. That's the end of episode 3. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you found it informative. I just can't believe where the hour goes, and I'm already looking forward to compiling the next one for you. On the next issue, we've got a little insight into Korg as a company and a little bit about the history, and I guarantee you will find that interesting. Some of the tie-ups and some of the things that have brought Korg to where they are today, really interesting. And we'll also feature those very special Korg headphones, and of course we'll have a lot more music. We'll have some guests dropping by again. So in the meantime, thanks again for your support. Stay safe and enjoy the summer. The sun is actually shining while I'm filming this, so fingers crossed we can enjoy a little bit more of a summer, and look forward to seeing you next month. Bye for now.